Hi, I'm Brain Lucy. Welcome to Culture Crazy Videos. Today I'm going to show you how to set up your Kefir Starter Kit. Now our kits arrive in this little cup with very simple instructions on the side, and that's what we'll be going over today, just to clarify exactly how it's done. Inside the cup, which we use by the way because they're very insulating against heat and they're also fairly crush worthy, you will find one of these cloths. Really handy in the kitchen in general, but they're great for culturing. So find a lucky band and of course your culture pot. Now to set up your kefir you won't need much today. What you will need is some milk. Don't use raw milk, any other milk is fine. You can use goat's, sheep's, UHT, powdered milk, all fine. Don't use skim milk, don't use raw milk. If you want to know why we don't use raw milk, you can watch the video rant that we posted earlier on about that. So to get started, we need our sterilised jar. Now sterilising a jar is very easy. Simply run it through the dishwasher and don't touch the inside when you pull it out. Done. Nice and sterile. The other way is to microwave the jar for 40 seconds or so empty, or with a little water in the bottom until it steams up, or you can rinse it out with hot water and vinegar. Don't use detergents and chemical cleaners because these leave residues that may harm or kill your cultures. So to get started, nice and easy. Undo your kit. Now it may have leaked a little bit into the plastic, swollen, that's fine. When you remove the lid, there'll probably be a bit of a pungent odour. Don't worry, that's not what kefir smells like in general terms, that's just what really over-fermented kefir that's travelled for a few days smells like. So, we empty the entire contents of your little culture jar into your sterile jar. Next, we add 1 cup of milk. Now if you want fizzy kefir, you will need to put it into a jar with a lid, but if you don't mind it that it's not fizzy, and I personally don't, then we simply cover, snap on the lucky, done. Now the reason the cloth that I send out is so big usually is because of the fact that you can actually use it to just cover the jar if you're leaving it out on a bench or something to protect it from sunlight, because sunlight will kill all microbes, so don't expose it to the sun, preferably pop it in a nice warm cupboard somewhere. So we set that aside for 12 to 24 hours, particularly for the first brew. 24 hours is best just to give it time to settle and culture. If you live in a colder area or an area prone to coldness, cold snaps, you might need to let it for 48 hours for this first batch, but 24 hours is the general rule. In hotter weather, it may be down to 6 to 12 hours, so leaving it out overnight is usually sufficient to ferment a nice batch of kefir. So, the next day, after it has sat and fermented, it'll probably have started to get some bubbles and set a little bit. You'll need to shake your jar. Give it a good shake. Don't be afraid of that with kefir. It loves being shaken about. Traditionally it was kept in skin bags that were hung in doorways and knocked every time you walk past, so don't be afraid to give your kefir jar a shake every now and again. It'll mix back in all the separated liquid that happens with all fermented products. So we simply strain that through our plastic colander. Don't use metals, it electrocutes the cultures. Strain it off. Return your cultures, or your grains, to your jar, which if need be, give it a rinse, but otherwise speaking it's fine to leave it just like that. And then you once again top it back up with milk. Cover and repeat the cycle. Now as to your collected kefir, you can strain that off using a plastic funnel, of course, into a bottle, nice and tightly sealed if you want a fizz on it, or you can just stick it in the fridge with a cover on it. Now kept in the fridge, this will last for about 4 or 5 days, but do remember it gets more and more sour as it keeps fermenting after the grains have been taken out of it. It is actually a live product in itself. Now when this gets low, if you don't want to top it up from your jar, or you've started a new lot, or whatever, you've given this to friends or family, when it gets down to about here, there's a little trick. You can actually top it back up with fresh milk and sit it out for a few hours, and that'll actually kefir as well. You don't need the grains for 4 or 5 batches. After 4 or 5 batches that won't happen, and you will need the grain to immerse it in grains to get that started again. But in the meanwhile, if you want it fizzy, like I said, tightly capped, kept out for a few hours before refrigeration, give it a chance to actually form some carbon bubbles. And if you don't want it fizzy, then just either don't cap it tightly or use the cloth cover on it. So that's pretty much essentially it. You just keep that up daily, 2 days in cold weather, or you can keep this in the fridge during the day and bring it out at night if you want to actually control it, because the ideal temperature for fermentation is between 17 and 27 degrees. Anything below that will slow it down. Anything above that has the potential of actually killing your cultures. So do try in hot weather to actually keep it in the fridge for at least a few hours a day. Just bring it out at night. It'll still get you plenty of kefir. That's it. It's as simple as that. It really is that simple. I know it doesn't sound like it at first when you hear about kefir. There's a few simple rules to follow, which we post pretty regularly and talk about a lot, such as don't use detergents and chemicals. Just use vinegar and bicarb if you need to. Don't use metals because they electrocute the cultures, because the cultures have a high acidity. And don't use raw milk. Okay, really important. Don't use it because it is a culture in itself. So I'm Brand Lucy of Culture Crazy. I hope you learnt something today, and I hope that any intimidation for doing kefir has been taken away. See how nice and simple it is. So from all of us here at Culture Crazy, happy culturing.